everybody? Welcome back to the Unversed podcast. Danny here, and today we are going to be talking about the main man, the legend, Bruce Lee. So today is Bruce Lee's birthday. He would have been 88, and I'm a big fan of Bruce Lee, and I figured, plus it's been a while since the podcast, that I thought, we'll come back, and I wanted to actually do something. Every year I always think like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and I never really do anything for the guy. So I was like, okay, now this year, let's go on the podcast, let's talk about him, man. I grew up watching this guy. He pretty much started my fandom for martial art films and just as the sport in general. I read a couple of his books and seen his interviews, his philosophy. I know his background. I've done speeches, on him, and he was just a great guy. He definitely had a lot of potential to do so many great things in his life, but unfortunately, he took that Advil or whatever it was to help him fall asleep. Allergic reaction, swelling in the brain. When his friends saw him, it was too late. I believe it was in the ambulance is when he passed away. So that sucks, especially for what he did. If it wasn't for him constantly pushing to have Chinese actors pretty much be leads in American movies, who knows where we would be today. Much like the greats of Jackie Chan and all that. He actually fought Jackie Chan in I think it's Big Boss or Fist of Fury. I forget which one it is. But yeah, Jackie Chan was a stuntman in there, and I even saw that interview with Jackie Chan. And yeah, man, I grew up, I watched every film, whether it be actually him, and then later realizing, it actually wasn't Bruce Lee. There was a lot of fake Bruce Lee movies. That was a big boom once he passed, because he was such a phenomenon. And just seeing how he worked was really great. I especially love what his idea of an actor is, which was interesting at the time. Very little dialogue, right? Because he's like, well, I'm acting, I have to express myself physically, because words are fine, but to truly express what you're trying to convey, your actions have a more likely chance to get what you're trying to say. Paraphrasing, of course, but yeah, man, like the way he would move and just the scenarios he would have in his movies, it was just amazing stuff. But yeah, so he did 5 movies, if you guys don't know. Well, technically, he did 3.5, because when he passed, he was filming Game of Death, right? He was filming the action scenes for that movie when he got the call, hey, America gave us the okay, let's go film Enter the Dragon, pretty much. So that's why he stopped Game of Death, went over to America, got everything set up for Enter the Dragon, and they filmed that one, and then that finally released, and he was going to go back to do Game of Death. I believe that's what the meeting was for. He went to his friend's house, and the director was also there, and they were going to discuss the film. And then that's when he took the medicine, and then that's the rest of the story. So the studio still wanted to do Game of Death, and it's like, well, we got these action scenes, we just need to get somebody that looks like Bruce. And his wife gave the okay at the time, and it was very, you could clearly tell this was not a Bruce Lee movie, right? Because of the faraway shots of him in the background. And I thought it was fine for the premise of, he got surgery on his face, so that's why he was wearing sunglasses the whole time. But man, you can never forget the infamous scene of him sitting in his room, right, in his little in the actor room, right after filming a set. And here comes like the director, puts his hand on him. The shot goes to the mirror, and they literally just got a picture of Bruce Lee's face and pasted it into the film, and it looks so bad. I don't know who thought that was a good idea, or why even have this scene in the first place. It doesn't make sense, you know? But of course, when we get towards the end, we see the infamous fights that he has in his classic yellow and black suit that is also worn in many other types of entertainment, you know, Kill Bill series, you know, she wears it in there. I believe, I forget the name, the lady from the Gorillas wears that suit as well. And, you know, there's just so many other characters that do it too. So, yeah, we get to those action scenes, and that was it. That was the last thing that we saw with Bruce Lee. Now, that is actually not the last time we see him in theaters, however, because unfortunately, they made a Game of Death 2, which used old footage from other movies as well, from, oh gosh, I forget which movie it is. When he fights Chuck Norris, they use scenes from there, and they just wrote like a whole script and like minimal fighting, because it's like, well, we don't have any more footage of him. And so the guy that they picked from the last movie, he kind of did some stuff, but it's like, why would they make a sequel to this? You know, it just doesn't really make sense. So, yeah, other than that, he has his other movies that he made: Big Boss, Fist of Fury, you know, Enter the Dragon, and oh gosh, I always forget this last one's name. I have the whole collection at home, of course. Got to keep those. And then, you know, as a kid, I was like, oh man, these movies are great, you know. And I kept watching movies. Oh yeah, and Game of Death, of course. But other than that one, what was the other one? I just like, Way of the Dragon, of course, yeah. And then, you know, look, I just type in Bruce Lee movies, right? And this is what I'm talking about right here. Then you got the real Bruce Lee, you know, and then you have like all these fake movies about pretty, like there was what was it? Return of the Dragon was one that I always watched, and like there was just a bunch. You know, they're just coming out left and right, and you know, being a kid, you can't really tell the difference at first, and you just keep watching them. And yeah, there it is. Look at that, Fury of the Dragon. What is that? Come on. But yeah, I mean, his movies are really good stuff. Even like going into his philosophy and learning his background about the whole teaching martial arts to Americans, and how that was a big no-no back in the home country, and him inventing his own martial arts, Jeet Kune Do, which is still being practiced today, you know, which is a great thing to see. He has his own book on it. That's what I'm missing. I still need to get that one and check it out. And even learning about his childhood, you know, as a teenager, and how he was he was a delinquent, basically, to the point where he almost got arrested. You know, the cops told his parents, well, hey, if he gets in trouble one more time, we're locking him up. And to hear his brothers say, like, this was the first time, like, their father ever hugged them, or cried at this as well, you know, and just said, like, you know, go back, you're going to move back to the United States, and you're going to live with your aunt over there, so you could get out of this trouble. And this was the time too where he was trained by his Wing Chun master, you know, Ip Man, which Donnie Yen portrays in his trilogy movies, coming back for a fourth one, I guess. And that's pretty much where he learned the basics. That's where we get those infamous photos of him with his master. And yeah, so he moves, you know, to America. I believe it's San Francisco, where his aunt was, which is where he was born. But then, you know, after he was born, they moved back to the country over there. And then, he went to University of Washington for philosophy, which is what we see, a lot of where his thinking comes from, right? Whether it be from his movies, his martial arts, the way he fights, this and that. And that is also where he met his future wife. I don't want to get her name wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's Shannon Lee. I know that's his daughter, but I think it's Linda. Let me just look it up real quick. And she's still around too, so thought so. Yeah, Linda Lee Cadwell. I'm pretty sure she's still around, right? Yeah. Unfortunately, she lost her husband, Bruce, and then, 20 or so years, 20 years later, exactly, her son, Brandon Lee, died on the set of Crow, if you guys don't know that. There was a scene in The Crow where he was getting shot at, and there was fragments in the blank shell that they had for the revolver or whatever gun they were using, and that's what hit Brandon and killed him. So yeah, that's tragic, that they're both gone doing what they do. So yeah, it's just Linda and their daughter Shannon Lee. She is the one that runs the Bruce Lee podcast, like the website. She pretty much does everything on the media side of Bruce Lee, and they told their story of how hard it was to get all that back, which was, from the studios and stuff. Like, that was a really difficult thing to do after years of them owning it, so that's great to see that she's still pushing his ideals forward in that. And if you see the Facebook page, she runs it along with the team, and they'll be posting like stuff from his journal and stuff that's never been seen before. So that's always great stuff to get to see more of the mind of her father, spread it out to the world, because that's what he would have done. So it's always great to see that pushing forward, and to still see that Bruce Lee was a huge impact. Like I said earlier, if it wasn't for him, who knows where we would be today with American martial art films. That constant push, and he taught a lot of actors out in Hollywood when he lived out there for a long time. He was training them. He even got that TV spot on the Green Hornet as Kato. He did that for a good while, and then he was on another show. But nothing major. That was his problem, was he wanted a major role. But, this was what, like the 60s, the 70s? That's, an American, a Chinese actor be the face of the movie? Come on, let's get real. That was the mindset back then. And, he kept pushing it, and eventually he moved back to Hong Kong because he's like, look, if you guys don't want to make my movie, I'm just going to make it over here. And I believe it was Big Boss was the first film, I believe. Was, super nervous when that came out, and just so relieved to hear the applause come forth, Big Boss, 1971. And also you have to realize too how short of a career Bruce Lee had in the film industry, right? Movie wise, sure, he was a young actor as a kid, have minor roles here and there. You could see those movies online somewhere. You could find those. But yeah, look, Big Boss, 1971, Fist of Fury and Way of the Dragon, both in 1972, and then finally with Enter the Dragon, the big one, 1973, and Game of Death was not that long after. Can't find the year on that one, but Game of Death 2, however. Oh, no, that was, so Game of Death was, 1978, 5 years after his death. So, just when it was rolling, he had to go. It's so sad to see. But yeah, I remember, listening to interviews and stuff. It's just like, when Big Boss came out, it was scary, like just the room was silent after the film ended. It's just something so different at the time from the usual, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon type of films, and when they got the applause, he was like, yes, I finally have it, this is what I need to do. He made the other two films, finally Enter the Dragon, and all that going on, and just to still see that he is an impact, I think. Not so much nowadays, right? Like 10 years ago, you could clearly tell he's still popping, but everybody still remembers him, I don't think he's as much of a cultural influence as he used to be, though, sadly. But, people will never forget, and that's what's important. There was those, what was it? Shaolin Soccer, right? When I saw Shaolin Soccer, I was like, oh man, the Stephen Chow comedy, great film. I was like, oh dude, like this guy who plays the goalie, one of the brothers, he looks just like Bruce Lee, holy cow. And they clearly knew that too, because when they gave him the outfit, it was clearly Bruce Lee. And to come to my surprise, in Ip Man 2, well, in Ip Man 2, it was a nice little surprise, right? You would have, at the end of that movie, Ip Man's just sitting by himself, and then here comes this little kid, and this is not how it happened, but here comes this little kid, and we all know who it is, and if you didn't know, at one point, you will clearly know when he smacks, he does the iconic thing with his nose, and it's like, oh, this kid's supposed to be Bruce. That's great, And then come to find out, in Ip Man 3, years later, that guy who was the goalie, they actually got him to play Bruce Lee. And I was like, oh man, right on, dude, that's great. And he pulls off a great Bruce Lee, And then also come to find out, years after that, I'm over here on, what was I doing? I was at the store. I think I was at Walmart. Yeah, I was at Walmart going through the movie section. If it's even still there. It's so abysmal now. But yeah, I was there, and I was like, yo, what is this? Bruce Lee, was it like Chinese Connection or something? And I was like, oh, and that's the guy that played him in Ip Man 2. And I was like, no way. And it's like, oh, it's like a televised biopic of Bruce Lee's life. And I was like, damn, dude, that's great. And unfortunately, it's only on DVD. However, you could get it here. It's translated, I think, with subtitles. But yeah, it pretty much is a broad summary of his life on film, which is great. I have yet to watch them yet, though. I wanted to grab all the volumes first. I believe there's 4 volumes out. I only got 3 right now. So whenever I get that last one, I'm definitely going to be watching him and just see how, accurate it is. I'm sure it's going to be very accurate because, his daughter Shannon's working on it. So, of course, everything's going to be great on that. And if you guys are a fan of Bruce Lee, much like I am, I think that's a great pick to grab because, there's really nothing else out there that I haven't consumed, anyways, about the man himself. So, seeing every interview, seeing, every film, listening to, like, the podcasts, and even stuff like just reading, like, in these books that are about him. It's like, oh, he had a friend that worked at Gold's Gym when he was still in Hollywood, and he specifically asked for custom bars so he could work out that will really help with his martial arts rather than just the standard stuff. And that was interesting right there in itself. It's like, oh man, like he really studied certain things that would just help improve him. I will say this, since we're on the topic of Bruce Lee, there have been some movies with him. There was, I believe it was The Dragon, it was called. Yeah, I believe it was called The Dragon, the Bruce Lee story. That was in the 90s. It was a biopic about him. And, the guy didn't really look like Bruce Lee, but, this is when I was watching all the movies. So watching this was, I thought it was good, you know? And then, I think it was last year. Let me look it up. But there was a movie that I was really hyped for. If I'm remembering the title right. Yep, it came out last year. It was called Birth of the Dragon. And and watching this, or the trailers for this, I was thinking, yeah, they're not using the guy that they were using for, Ip Man 2, for this televised biopic. Like, how come they're not doing that? And watching the trailer, I was like, oh, dude, no way, this is the fight, right? Because, when he was training Americans, martial arts, and over in China, they were like, yo, dude, that is not okay. And he was like, why not? If they want to learn, I will teach them. And so a couple masters and I believe a student, or no, just masters, they came over to America and they talked to Bruce, and basically the deal was Bruce Lee would fight one of the masters, and if Bruce wins, then he could continue to train there, and if he loses, then he has to pack up and never train other people that are non-Chinese, And of course, Bruce Lee won. I believe the story goes he beat the man in seconds, but Bruce was upset because he could have beaten him faster, and he didn't. So that's where kind of like that, just where that Bruce Lee spirit comes in, But anyways, yeah, so this movie is about that fight, and I was like, dude, no way, cool, I can't wait to watch it, but I didn't watch it. And it's like, what? You're such a big Bruce Lee fan and you didn't watch a movie about Bruce Lee? Well, it's not about Bruce Lee. It's about one of his students, and it just so happens that he witnesses the fight, and Bruce Lee is kind of in the background, which, that really sucks. I remember watching the, ooh, ouch, that's worse than I thought. So yeah, I watched the trailers, and like, there was a trailer, I think it was the second or third one before the movie was even close to coming out, and it was like, man, he's not even in this trailer. And then, yeah, I started hearing the horrible news of he's not even in the movie, it's not even about him, and I was like, oh man, I don't want to watch it at that point. And then the final trailer, definitely they pushed more Bruce Lee in there. Whether or not there's more footage, or they film more footage, I highly doubt it. But yeah, this was a movie that, like, I'm okay. I'll just, maybe I'll watch it one day. But yeah, it's about his student Steve McKee, so it's like, oh, whatever. But I didn't know it did this horrible. Budget was $31 million, so, typical rule is you double that, and, that's also the budget with the advertisement, so you're looking around 60 mil, for the making of this movie and for, advertising it, which was, it wasn't heavily advertised, but the box office, sadly, was only 7 million. And yeah, after watching reviews too, it was like, oh, this was a horrible movie. It was just bad all around. And I was like, damn, that really sucks, Oh yeah, because it came out in 2016, right? In like some film festival stuff, and yeah, and then it released worldwide a year later. So it just sucks to see that, because I'm pretty sure this is the most recent Bruce Lee content besides the Bruce Lee television stuff. Yeah, so after all that, I mean, I don't know what else to say, man, other than if you haven't seen anything with Bruce Lee in it, go see it. It's really good stuff. Go watch those documentaries that were on TV like years ago. They talked to like his brother, his wife, Jackie Chan, anybody that's still around that was involved with him, and just listen to those stories. Excuse me, it was really great stuff, especially with the infamous interview that he does where, he talks about his, be water, water can flow and it can crash, and all that good stuff. And that's also where he says, like, there's really no style in martial arts. And how it's like, if you want styles, then we have to have more than 2 arms and 2 legs. That's a variation of fighting. And, yeah. Oh, yeah, don't forget, guys, he was in 2 UFC games, which was pretty cool to see. I remember I was really hyped for that, to the point where I'm like, man, I'm not a big fan of these UFC games because I don't understand them. They're not like fighting games. But shoot, I'll play it if Bruce Lee's in there. I almost bought the Bruce Lee edition or whatever it was called, to play as the boy. Also, another fact that you guys might not know, but in his films, I believe specifically probably Fist of Fury, or one of those, or Enter the Dragon or whatever. He would move so fast that they asked him to slow down, as well as them slowing down the footage, because the cameras at the time could not keep up. So that's some crazy stuff right there with the boy. And his diet was ridiculous, right? Just many like raw meat and egg, like milkshakes he would drink pretty much for his protein, and just a bunch of other stuff that goes, like, he's such an interesting guy, so many things that he did. And it's just sad to see that he's not here anymore, and such a entertaining, funny guy too. Listening to an interview with Chuck Norris about when they fought, Chuck, talked to him. He's like, so you want to beat the number 1 man in the world or whatever, the strongest man in the world? And Bruce was like, oh no, I want to kill the strongest man in the world. He always has that. It's just what Bruce Lee was always about, that it was so good to see in film, and in, just him in real life. And yeah, again, it's his birthday today, and I figured I got to do something, whether it be rambling on this podcast, or these photos I wanted to edit that, I never get around to. But yeah, man, Bruce Lee is such a big part of, our pulp culture even. Look at any fighting game out there, you're going to see Bruce Lee, even in the anime and manga world, even in comics, Rock Lee in Naruto is pretty much just Bruce Lee. Look at Tekken 7. You have martial law, you have his son Forest Law. They are essentially just Bruce Lee. Street Fighter, you have Fei Long. In Soul Calibur, you have, I know there's somebody in Soul Calibur. There is DOA, you got a guy in there, and there's just so many areas to go to. I remember a long time ago, early, if you could even call them photo edits, I did one of just Bruce Lee, and that wasn't even, I don't remember. It's been so long since I made it. I don't remember who is in this image. But of course, like the people I just mentioned are on there for sure. Let's see, let me browse. It was on my DeviantArt back in the day, guys. Whew, a long time ago. But if it's still on here, let's see. Pretty much everybody I mentioned. There's probably more, if you just type in like, Bruce Lee, this and that, and you're gonna find results. What's his name? There's a guy from Marvel. who fights with Iron Fist here and there. He's just as old as Iron Fist. That guy is pretty much Bruce Lee. There's a guy in DC Comics that's just like that. And, gosh, I don't think I even have it on here anymore. But, he's such an inspiration. And I think he was, I don't know if you guys remember the Seth Rogen movie with, yep, I don't have it anymore. But the Seth Rogen Green Hornet movie, the guy that plays Kato, he was drawing something, and I believe there's homage to Bruce Lee in there as well. So, yeah, man, it was a time, seeing him on film. That was definitely a big change to, again, what we do, a big inspiration to everybody. Even on those like TV documentaries, they would have like actors on there who would want to talk about Bruce Lee because they're just like, I forget which actor it was, but he was talking about when he was walking down an alley, with his gun out, trying to find somebody, and he's thinking, man, what would Bruce Lee do in this scene? I'm trying to get into that kind of mindset, like the way he would move and the way he's cautious. Like, I would always think like that when I was filming that scene. And, sure, that was like 10, 15, 20 years ago that documentary came out. But still, it's like, it was clear, man, a lot of people grew up watching Bruce Lee, again, myself included. And to see him sort of be less impactful, at this point, he died in 73. That was, 45 years ago? Gosh, was it really that long already? Yeah, because, 45 years ago, he passed away. So, I can understand a lot of people nowadays, they don't grow up to Bruce Lee. But we got to keep him going. Got to keep reminding people who he was and what he did, And that's why we're here talking about that today. And sorry for all the rambles on this episode. I thought I'd have more concrete, but just want to do it off the top of the head. Instead of I kind of planned it out here and there, but you just want to, get my thoughts about the man himself out. And I think that's all I have to say this time around about Bruce Lee. So, I could keep going about the history of Bruce Lee, like what he's done with his life, but you guys could find that out for yourselves as well. Just go check him out. And again, we're back. Hopefully I'm back. It's been a while on the podcast. Holiday season's coming up, end of the year, it just kind of happens here and there. You just kind of pull back. I do see the emails, and maybe soon, real soon, we're going to do an episode. So, main episode. So be on the lookout for that. Those Arrow reviews, I know I'm behind. Gosh, I don't even know how many episodes at this point. I think 3. Excuse me. Well, I need to record one, I believe. But, that'll be back soon, hopefully. I've just been, I don't know, just chilling, just doing, I don't know what I'm doing over here. I'm just being lazy, right? I guess I did record the last episode I watched. So I got to catch up on that show. Manga review coming soon for Parasite. Be on the lookout for that. That was a great manga. I recommend it. And main channel stuff again. That should be happening soon, hopefully. And as far as we brought it up briefly about a Kingdom Hearts LP. We'll see what happens this week and next week. If there's no news about it by the next episode, I don't think we're going to be doing Kingdom Hearts specifically, but we want to get back into that world of entertainment, so be on the lookout for that, and hopefully some other content for the podcast. And of course, remember guys, check out Marvel Talk. We have a few episodes up right now about our experiences at conventions. Me and the boy Jake over there, we did LA Comic-Con. And then Connor, with his lovely girlfriend over there, went to Kumoricon. So go listen to our thoughts on those conventions if you're interested in those. And, while you wait for the next episode, of course, you could email us at unversedpodcast@gmail.com. Question, comments, concerns. What is your Bruce Lee story? Did he impact you? Did you watch him growing up? What do you, just, would love to hear that. Because even now, I don't, really see a lot of people that I know, like new people. We don't really talk about that. And also, you can follow us on social media at Unversed Podcast, anywhere you go, to stay updated on those latest episodes. And again, that'll be all today, guys. So enjoy the outro, which was also from the intro. Freddie Bruno, I believe his name is. Apologies if I get that incorrect here. But he came out with the Bruce Lee mixtape a few years back. And basically, it's just an instrumental album using samples from like the soundtrack for those films. Like old school Chinese music for martial art films. And every now and then he would have those audio clips from the films, which I don't believe is Bruce Lee, right? Because I remember when they dubbed it, it was, oh man, some of those dubs were something else. You might hear one here at the end that I thought was very funny. In the movie and in this mixtape. Let me just pull it up real quick. But that's on Bandcamp. The link is going to be in the description as always, so go check that out. It's a pretty good instrumental album. I think it's pretty relaxing. And let's see. Yeah, Freddie Bruno. Yeah, I was correct. The Bruce Lee mixtape. Link in the description, like I said. And that is all we have to say today, guys. So thanks for listening. And as always, we will talk to you next time.
You may begin. 从此拜佛，双弓千子，金龙献爪，连环扣射，燕落平沙，猴子偷桃，双飞蝴蝶，独背单巧，牛马冲锤，返魂保鹤，乌龙摆尾。Your style is indeed superior.